Will Power said something interesting, saying that Formula One is essentially a joke because everybody knows Max Verstappen's going to win a race if something doesn't go wrong with his car, and he's absolutely right. But there was another point he made in the article which was very interesting to me. He said that essentially all these guys who are in Formula One, they're not actually enjoying the satisfaction of racing. And what did everybody get into racing for? The actual sport of it. I know a lot of people say fame and all this other stuff. The amount of money you have to invest and just burn to get into racing, especially at the highest levels. I mean, you've been doing it since you were 4 or 5 years old if you get to that pinnacle. And if you do it, you have to absolutely love racing. These guys get to Formula One, and 80 or 90% of them never even get to a top team. I mean, right now you really have what? Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. Those are 3 teams that can essentially possibly win a race, but really only Red Bull can win a race. So there's huge chunks of F1 history where pretty much one team is winning all the races. You had McLaren with Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna for a while. You had, even after that, the Williams with you had Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill. You had Michael Schumacher and the Benetton. Michael Schumacher and the Ferrari for all those seasons. Then you kind of had Ferrari and McLaren kind of fighting, but then huge domination by Sebastian Vettel, then huge domination by Mercedes. So really Formula One is just becoming this thing where you have to be in the top team, and most times it's only one driver who's going to win the championship because his backup driver, his number 2 driver, is not as highly skilled at him or doesn't have the resources allocated to him and is favored as the team. Really only Verstappen can win this championship. When Hamilton was at Mercedes up until the Nico Rosberg one season, once in a blue moon type situation, he won everything. Vettel was the same thing with Webber. So we really have only seen the one competitive season with Hamilton and Verstappen. And then you have to go all the way back to 2012 where it was down to the wire again with Alonso and with Vettel. So that's a 10-year gap. And then before that, you have to go back a couple of seasons again to 2008. And then before that, I mean, Alonso kind of won the stages with Michael, but it would just be domination. What Will Power was saying is that IndyCar, you can turn on a Grand Prix any single given Sunday or Saturday they have. And there's a myriad of guys who can win. Almost half the field can win, is at least possibly able to win. But there's like a good 10 to 15 guys who can win a Grand Prix on any given Sunday. Alex Palou just became the first driver this season after, I believe, 7 races to have 2 wins. In Formula One, you have Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Red Bull has led 95% of all laps in Formula One this season. Listen to that, 95%. Now, the other 5% probably had to do with pitting strategies where they put on a set of tires and they were behind for 5 or 10 laps until the leader had to pit, and then they had to go shuffle back 30 seconds behind them. So what Will Power is really saying is he's not even being judgmental, or people are going to say he's just bitter because he's not in Formula One. We all know Formula One is the most popular sport, has the most eyes, has the most glamour, is considered to be the most skilled drivers, but it's just not true. There's tons of skilled drivers who decided they weren't going to try and test with F1 teams all the time and never get a position. They jumped from F2, they jumped from F3 to IndyCar so that they would actually have a chance. Alex Palou is a perfect representative of that. He's won the championship already. He's gotten the pole for the Indy 500. Hopefully he'll be able to win the Indy 500 again. What has Mick Schumacher done? The guy who was ahead of Callum Ilott, who's in IndyCar now. At least Callum Ilott's trying to challenge for a podium or victory. Mick Schumacher had 2 seasons at Haas where he was eventually able to get a 6th position. But that's not what racing's about. Ask anybody who gets into racing, even at the most amateur of levels in karting and everything. They are there to win. It is not there to show up and come in 5th or 10th position. Racing is supposed to be the satisfaction of going for victory, at least attempting to be able to go to victory, to race side by side with your competitors, with your peers, with other guys who are getting out there with you. In Formula One right now, That's just not reality. There's a bunch of guys who've spent their entire lives to be at teams that they'll never even sniff a top 10. They'll never even get close to being on a podium. And they'll be talked about in amazing ways for getting a 5th position. And then because of political and financial reasons, will never be able to even get to a team where they can try for a victory. That's the reality of Formula One. I don't know what the statistic is, but at least 80 or 90% of drivers in Formula One never even attain a victory. And the guys who do get victories, maybe they get 1 out of 150 starts, and that's it. That's the difference between IndyCar and Formula One. And if you're being serious just from a racing point of view, not from a marketing, not from a technological point of view, IndyCar is the top. Now, I disagree with what Will Power was saying about changing it. I don't think you should have a spec car series, which essentially IndyCar is now. You should have people be able to spend the amount of money they want. Really, what of all this has happened is because of the budget cap that they've done in Formula One. That budget cap introduced to make it fair for all the teams. No, the teams that suck still suck, okay? But there were teams like Ferrari and Mercedes that could dump hundreds of millions of dollars, and it would actually end up, they'd be fighting for victories between at least 2 or 3 teams. Not championships, but at least you'd have other people winning races because people could just go deeper and deeper into cash. And then people had to use aerodynamicists like Adrian Newey to offset that, like a Red Bull, if they couldn't spend that amount of money. And then if you had a team that really didn't spend a lot of money and got a 5th place, it was even more insane. And it was a bigger deal for the racers and the team because they really had no financial backing of the teams. And then they could get, better sponsorship, better drivers. And the whole thing about Formula One in most of racing, the one thing I'll disagree with Will Power on in IndyCar is it's supposed to be about innovation. It's supposed to be about engine manufacturers. It's supposed to be about people designing cars and putting it to the forefront. It's not supposed to just be like, baseball where it's bats and balls or soccer where it's just one soccer ball. It's supposed to be people coming with innovation, putting the best cars, the best products, the best engines, and the best drivers out there to fight for it. So I've always liked that, and I think Formula One should probably go back to a non-budget cap situation. And if I'm telling you, if you love Formula One, if you watch Formula One religiously, but you're getting tired of these Mexican Grand Prix, these Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the Spanish Grand Prix that we just watched, where it's essentially a parade from first to last, and there's a couple bit of passing back in the 8th to 12th position. You can go to IndyCar, the Detroit Grand Prix. Go check it out. If you could even watch a replay. The bouncing everywhere, the passes, the fighting between the top 5, top 10, top 15, the wheel to wheel, the inside going on the outside, fighting for first. Constant changing and battling. It's essentially what people want Formula One to be like, but it isn't. And deep down, people who are real Formula One fans know that IndyCar is the superior racing league. And check it out. Trust me, you will not be disappointed.